You're listening to a Roddenberry Podcast.
Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. We'll have more news this evening, but first...
The latest Gene-ology, a Roddenberry Podcast.
Episode 95, Runaway Home. Welcome to Mission Log Gene-ology. I'm Ashley Thomas.
And I'm Earl Green. In each Gene-ology, we go hunting down pieces of Gene Roddenberry's television writing past, the scripts and shows he wrote before he created Star Trek, to piece together the story of the career of a guy who was getting good enough at his job that some studio heads said, "Hey, this guy wants to do a Star Trek. We should bankroll some Star Trek."
This week, Runaway Home.
Alamarain!
No, Earl, that's a completely different thing. We talked about this.
I know, it's just fun to yell Alamarain. Is that so wrong?
No, I know it is. I, too, love yelling Alamarain, but some folks aren't a real big fan of that word, so... Looking at you, John Champion. Anyway, this week is Runaway Home, an episode of the popular classic Western series, The Virginian, and it's a momentous occasion because this is the last script Gene Roddenberry ever wrote for a Western. And yet, weirdly, not the only Western this script will appear in. I hear trivia is a bit complicated this week.
Yep. Before we get to trivia on this week's episode, let me take a moment to encourage you to join our Patreon, or follow us on YouTube, or leave a review wherever you're listening to us. Bonus points if you do all three. Patreon is your gateway to all things Mission Log, including exclusive access to the unedited version of our show, codename The VAM, and our private Discord, where you can interact with us, your hosts, and other Roddenberry Podcast hosts during scheduled live chats, along with occasional screenings. You can access all this for just $1 a month, or more. We're not going to be mad about that. Head over to patreon.com/missionlog to see what tier works for you, and you can join the conversation.
By the way, reviews help our shows more than you could possibly know. Even if you can't come up with the words for a written review, a 5-star rating really does go a long way to tell the algorithm that you like us, you love us, you want some more of us, you think that other folks might like, love, and want more of us too. We are counting on our loyal genealogists to help us spread the word. Please and thank you. And now, this week's trivia. Earl, I'm going to let you run away with this week's trivia. Go for it, bro.
I'll try to bring it home. Friends, sit around the campfire with us to hear a tale, one last time, almost, of Gene Roddenberry writing for TV westerns. With the development of The Lieutenant underway since his discussions with Dr. Kildare producer Norman Felton, Gene was getting a few paycheck gigs under his belt as necessary to keep the lights on, as he was now firmly set on the path to become showrunner of his own show. But on this occasion, Gene got story credit only, with teleplay credit going to some fellow sci-fi royalty. The script was written by none other than Howard Brown, past editor of Amazing Stories magazine. Yes, the same pulp magazine that lent its name to a couple of TV adaptations so far, the longest running being one produced by Steven Spielberg in the 1980s. Brown had since given up his post as editor of Amazing Stories and was trying his hand at screenwriting. So it's odd that two men whose histories are so intertwined with that genre, science fiction, should collaborate on one last bit of horse opera. The Virginian, starring James Drury as the title character, was emblematic of television's love affair with the Western. It seemed like such a sure thing that it was given a 90-minute time slot every week and a budget to match. The idea was that every 75-minute episode would be a little bit of a self-contained movie with continuing characters. Runaway Home is the 29th episode of the show's first season, and it aired on April 24th, 1963, so we are now within 6 months of the premiere of The Lieutenant. Though we have no production paperwork or correspondence to back this up, it seems very likely that work on his upcoming military show prevented Gene from doing any rewrites that were requested, and thus Runaway Home landed in Howard Brown's lap for revisions. We never learn the Virginian's name, and that's all anyone ever calls him, like he's a Time Lord or something. James Drury, in the lead role, was enjoying finally landing a starring role, and he hung on to that role for dear life. Given the Virginian's relatively lavish budget and the fact that it ran from 1962, when Westerns still ruled the airwaves, until 1971, when it was one of only 4 Westerns left on the air on American television, the gig probably paid Drury handsomely for that loyalty, and when his days starring in a Western were done, he moved on immediately to the lead role in a modern-day show, Firehouse, which lasted all of 13 weeks in early 1974. He had a recurring role very early in the run of Walker, Texas Ranger, though that role was quickly eliminated as the show's formula took shape. When The Virginian was remade in 2000 as a TV movie starring Bill Pullman, Drury showed up in a cameo, but not playing his old character. Just about any time there was an attempt at reviving the TV Western, Drury had a pretty good shot at being there, and in between, he was more than happy to make whatever appearances might keep the original Virginian in the public consciousness, shooting new material and interviews for cable TV reruns into the 21st century. We lost James Drury in 2020, but his legacy is enshrined at his official website, thevirginian.com. There's a rotating cast of sidekicks, but usually you only got one of them per episode. In this week's adventure, we have Gary Clark as Steve Hill. Gary was only in the first 2 seasons of The Virginian, and while he continued his acting career, he also started trying his hand at writing, mainly for the spy spoof Get Smart. He also did the rounds with James Drury in promoting rerun packages of The Virginian much later. Other secondary characters in the rotation were played by Doug McClure as the rebellious Trampus, Lee J. Cobb as Judge Garth, the ranch owner, and Clu Gulager, who debuted later in the show. The episode's primary guest star is Janine Riley as Amelia Pryor. Janine was mere months away from the TV role that most audiences would remember her from, as the original face of Billy Joe Bradley on Petticoat Junction. Interestingly, Janine was not the original casting choice for that role. Originally, one Sharon Tate was cast as Billy Joe, but behind-the-scenes shuffles resulted in the character being recast. After only 2 years as Billy Joe, Janine moved on to launch a movie career, which would include such films as Electric Glide in Blue. Now, The Virginian is a loose adaptation of a book that had seen several movie adaptations in between. But, speaking of adaptations, this script will turn up again. This exact story will turn up again as an early episode of Alias Smith & Jones in 1971, with a teleplay credit for Howard Brown, and still with the story credit for Gene Roddenberry, which I'm sure was very welcome in the lean post-Star Trek years for Gene.
Get down, both of you.
It's me they want. Just do like they say, and you'll be fine.
I said get down!
Hey, don't I know you from somewhere?
Let me tell you something, Mr. Swenson. That money belongs to the man I work for. If I have to, I'll spend the rest of my life running you down.
Now I tell you something. I worked nearly 10 years for this money. I save it dollar by dollar. I am not going to let the man you're talking about take it away from me.
It's not the same money, Mr. Swenson. Can't you get that through your thick skull?
Oh, I am an honest man. I take only what is mine. $12,500.
No! Look at it this way, mister. Is your life more important to you than $12,000 of somebody else's money?
Well, it's a lot more important than that of anybody's money.
Then you tell us where it is.
Mister, I hope you know the truth when you hear it, because I don't know where that money is. You think I go through all of this just for a bunch of waste paper?
I'll tell you what I think, mister. I think you figured we'd catch up with you, so you hid the money and you fixed up these fake bundles, expecting us to take a quick look at the bundles and ride off with the whole $40,000, didn't you? Then when we had time to look and see what we got, you'd be gone. Only you don't know my pa. You don't know that he won't take 1 cent that is not rightfully his. That's where you made a mistake.
I hate to disappoint you, mister, but that just ain't so. I didn't have anything to do with that. I think I know who did, Walter Moody.
Mr. Moody is lawyer.
Well, it don't mean he can't be a crook. He put those bundles in that saddlebag while I was signing a paper. I guess he figured once I left his office he could say I made the switch. Be his word against mine.
Oh, you expect us to believe you took the money without looking at it?
I expect a lawyer to be honest, leastways I did. That's where I made my mistake.
I figure you are lying, and I got to beat the truth out of you.
No, Papa. No! Jody, you watch them.
What's your name, honey?
It wouldn't mean a thing to you.
Maybe no, maybe yes. I'm the kind of guy who never forgets a face. It'll come to me. Don't worry.
Nothing you could do would worry me in the least.
The Virginian is the foreman of the Shiloh Ranch located in Medicine Bow, Wyoming in the late 1890s. Though he has a moral code and stands his ground when challenged, the Virginian, whose name we never learn in the show, does avail himself of Judge Garth's wise mentorship and enjoys a friendly rivalry with Trampas and with Steve Hill, the younger men who also work on the ranch. Act 1. Center City. A train hauls cattle toward a large feedlot accompanied by the Virginian. After accepting a bill of sale from the cattle buyer, the Virginian is told he might want to hurry over to the bank with that promissory note. There's been a run on the bank, and cash may be in short supply. But by the time he and Steve Hill get there, the bank is closed until further notice, according to a sign on the door. And the Shiloh Ranch is now out $40 grand. Ouch. There's only one place to turn. Walter J. Moody, attorney at law. But Moody is currently in a very contentious meeting with a man named Carl Swenson, played by guest star Carl Swenson. Carl is also out 5 figures and confronts Moody with the rumor that it was Moody who cleaned out the bank. Moody doesn't deny it, but does say he was acting on behalf of a client of his who had money in the bank. A client who happens to be Judge Garth, owner of the ranch where the Virginian works. This is not the answer Carl is looking for, because the next thing he does is pull a revolver on Moody. After all, if Moody withdrew cash this morning, that cash is still in his office. Moody reluctantly unlocks a desk drawer and pulls out a cash box, which he then has to unlock at gunpoint. It's about now when the Virginian and Steve arrive at Moody's office, but Carl is so loudly threatening to shoot Moody that they don't even bother to knock. They draw their own pistols and burst in on what they believe is an armed robbery in progress. They get the drop on Carl, but Moody intercedes on the man's behalf to avoid bloodshed, asking Carl to understand that Moody isn't claiming the money for himself. The revelation that Moody withdrew the money on Judge Garth's behalf is a weight off of the Virginian's shoulders, but what to do with the notorious Carl Swenson? Moody sighs in resignation. Get the sheriff. Moody puts the money back in the cash box, and the sheriff arrives to arrest Carl. Even as he's being hauled off, Carl complains loudly, "Rich guy better have my money." With that, Moody calmly informs the Virginian that it's his job to take the cash back to Judge Garth. But just a minute, the Virginian says. If Swenson knew that money was bound for Judge Garth, everyone between here and Wyoming will be looking out for anyone carrying that amount of cash on them. It's just too dangerous. The nearest bank that's still open for business is 60 miles away, but better that than a 600-mile train ride back to Wyoming with that much cash on you. Moody points out that the bank 60 miles to the south is solid and solvent, and they could write the judge a bank draft. But for right now, the Virginian and Steve should catch some shut-eye at the local hotel, and Moody will arrange for them to have horses in the morning for the journey south. 2 men approach the jail with dinner for the notorious Carl Swenson. These are the Swenson boys, and the sheriff's deputy says he knows better than to trust them. He checks under every covered dish and even stirs the pot of coffee to make sure nothing is concealed inside. And he does this while the sheriff himself draws down on the boys. His curiosity and concern satisfied, the deputy chases the Swenson boys off. The sheriff delivers the meal while it's still hot. But as soon as he is not being watched, Swenson reaches into the soup the the one thing the sheriff didn't check, and removes a sopping wet bundle which he unwraps to reveal a derringer, which he wipes dry before calling for the sheriff. He pulls the derringer on the sheriff, demanding to be set free. He disarms both the sheriff and his deputy before locking them up. Hey, at least they've got a hot dinner in there waiting for them. And with that, the notorious Carl Swenson is at large. In the morning, the Virginian and Steve pay a Mr. Cooper a visit with their note from Moody to extend them every courtesy, namely a couple of decent riding horses. And the sooner the better, as Steve is going to do a number on his neck, constantly checking over his shoulder and in every direction. The two outsiders know they're going to be moving targets. Sure enough, they're already being tailed by one of the Swenson boys. Dropping by Moody's office, the Virginian finds that the lawyer is now armed, especially since news broke of Swenson's escape from jail. In exchange for the cash, Moody insists that the Virginian complete the bill of sale and leave that document with him. As the Virginian does that, Moody stuffs the money into a large leather bag for travel. With that bag in hand, the Virginian prepares to leave, with Moody warning him Swenson is armed and desperate, and he'll do anything to get that money. The Virginian smirks. That makes us even. I'll do anything to keep it. Act 2. The Virginian and Steve ride south, and they ride hard, heading to Firestone and its bank. They're already being followed by a posse of 4 or 5 men, and they push the horses hard. They bring the horses to a stop just short of the steps to the doors of the bank, and the Virginian rushes to the doors, finding them locked. A local tells him it closed 2 days ago, yet another victim of insolvency, regardless of what Moody thought. The Virginian inquires about the next train out of town, and his local informer thinks about it. Today's Wednesday. Let's say, next train isn't until Friday, day after tomorrow. But there's a freight train that'll be going through town any second. Steve suggests conferring with the local sheriff, but the Virginian fears he's carrying enough cash to turn even a lawman against him. We've burned through plans A, B, and C. We're now on plan D. Detrain, boss, detrain! The two split up as the notorious Carl Swenson and his posse race down the main street. Steve allows them to catch up with him and plays dumb, while the Virginian hightails it through a barn with the money slung over his shoulder in a saddlebag. When the posse realizes Steve doesn't have the money, their full attention shifts to finding the other man, giving Steve an opening to quick mount and get the hell out of there with the Swensons in hot pursuit. But they shoot his horse, which rolls to the ground, dumping Steve unceremoniously, but uninjured. Carl and his boys threaten Steve's life, demanding to know where the Virginian has gone. But he tells them he doesn't know, there wasn't time to formulate a plan. Swenson also knows there's no passenger train until Friday, but then remembers hearing a train whistle, so there's some kind of train in town. The freight train, which is now getting underway. With money bags slung over his shoulder, the Virginian takes a flying leap into a moving boxcar whose cargo is one pretty lady. I didn't know they shipped those in boxcars. She's far from a hobo. She's wearing a nice dress. She seems more delighted than dismayed at the strange man who's just joined her in jumping the train. Meet Amelia Pryor, or Amy for short. On the ride, Amy's quite a chatterbox, revealing that she's engaged to be married to a rich, upscale fellow from New York, painting a picture of a whole life ahead of her where she'll want for nothing. Which, the Virginian notes, makes her kind of an unlikely candidate for jumping into a moving train. Why is she here with all that to look forward to? It's simple. Amy says she wants excitement and adventure and really wild things. She wants to live a little before she's locked into a gilded cage made of other people's expectations. She wants to see San Francisco and maybe the Barbary Coast. She's not exactly undertaking this journey with her family's knowledge or permission, which is why it's been more than a day since she last ate. The Virginian is astonished she didn't lead with that part of the story, but then he never did understand society types. In the telegraph office at Firestone, the notorious Carl Swenson and his gang are trying to get the telegraph operator to wire word ahead of the train to its next stop, warning them there's a thief stowing away on that train with Swenson's money. The telegraph operator is exasperated, finally getting a word in edgewise. It'll be over 200 miles before that train reaches a stop where there is also a telegraph office. There are way stations along the way where it tops up on coal and water, but there's no way to get word ahead to those. In the boxcar, the train is riding into the night, and the Virginian is trying to set up a way to build a little fire for warmth without setting the whole boxcar on fire. Having endured his questions about why she's there, Amy wonders why he didn't opt for the passenger train and gets only a mumbled answer about him being in a hurry. They finally hit the hay, which is literally the only thing there is to sleep on. The Virginian opens the door enough to peek out and get the lay of the land. The train slows as it pulls into a way station to take on coal and water. The Virginian plans to slip outside unseen by the engineer and try to find something for he and his fellow boxcar passenger to eat. On foot, he makes his way up a road and finds a house guarded by a chained dog. After repeatedly and loudly asking, "Is anybody home?" the Virginian lets himself in and helps himself to the contents of the bread box and looks around to see what else there might be to eat. In the boxcar, Amy waits worriedly. The train's whistle blows. She's about to get underway again. The Virginian rushes back to the tracks only to be caught by the engineer and kicked off into the ground while trying to climb aboard. Amy goes back into hiding. Oh well, he was interesting. The Virginian can only watch as the train gathers speed and rolls away. Act 3. The notorious Carl Swenson and his gang get to the way station just a bit on the late side. The train has already moved on. At a ranch in the middle of nowhere, the Virginian pays $40 cash for a loping horse named Lightning and politely declines the owner's enticing offer to pay an additional $20 for a saddle so worn that it doesn't actually have a seat anymore. He rides onward from there, but about the time he gets back to the way station, where everything went sideways and then went forward very fast, he's surprised to see Amy stumbling down the tracks, carrying both her own bag and his saddlebag. Her shoes may be well suited to life in the city, but they're not doing her any favors in the dirt and gravel. While the Virginian is delighted to see her, he is also very surprised to see her. Starving at this point, the closest thing Amy had to a plan was to find him again, just in case he had found food. Which he did, and not expecting to run into Amy again, he already ate it. Tearfully, Amy tells the Virginian to just go find her some more food, especially after the trouble she went through to find him again. That night, the train has made another stop, and the engineer is accosted by the notorious Carl Swenson and his posse, still looking for the man they describe as a thief. The engineer admits he kicked a man off quite a ways back, who could be the man they're describing, but he doesn't know anything more than that. The Swenson gang saddles up and rides back the way they came. At around the same time, the Virginian, Amy, and Lightning arrive back at the house he borrowed some food from earlier, but this time it's occupied by a man and his wife, the Lewises, and they're suspicious of the young couple at the door, until Amy spins a tale about them being on their honeymoon, left with only a single horse to ride after their buggy broke down, and just breaks into tears, and there, come on in, you seem like nice folks. Finally getting to eat, Amy keeps spinning a tale so tall that the Virginian is worried it's going to snap. It's okay to have an origin story, but Amy is trying to convince their hosts that she's related to English royalty? When Amy, still trying a little too hard, tacks on that she and her husband plan to have at least 3 kids, the Virginian tries to make slightly more mundane, polite conversation, saying he supposes Lewis's kids are grown and moved out by now. This question is met with an awkward pause and Mr. Lewis saying, no, they never had children. Good job making it weird, Virginian. Anyway, it's going to be a cold one tonight, probably some frost. The Virginian suggests that with their bellies full, he and Amy might hit the road again, but the Lewises won't hear of it, and neither will Amy, not even when she finds out that the luxury guest accommodations mean bedding down in the barn with some blankets. The Virginian is startled, and maybe a little hostile, when he spots that his bags aren't where he left them. Mr. Lewis just stashed them in a closet with Amy's bag. No biggie. The Virginian apologizes if his outburst insulted his host. The rest of his evening consists of setting up the hayloft equivalent of separate beds and needling Amy about her reacting to everything like a city slicker would. She's glad to be across the hayloft from him, until she isn't. It's really cold. She snuggles up to the Virginian, all the while delivering the disclaimer that this doesn't mean a thing, it's just about shared body heat. Which is fine by him, he just wants to sleep, with the bag of cash under his head. But Amy plants a kiss on him, and just when it looks like there's about to be some hayloft hanky-panky, she coyly retreats to her own pile of blankets after all. Good night. In the morning, the Virginian is up with the sun and ready to go. Amy is not. The only thing that rousts her from her pile of blankets and hay is the casual mention that there might be breakfast waiting. Breakfast? After breakfast, the Lewises see their guests off. In fact, they leave an open invitation for them to come back any time. And with that, hi-ho, lightning, away! They follow the trail with the directions Mr. Lewis gave them until a bunch of guys pop out from behind some rocks. Oh, look, if it isn't the notorious Carl Swenson and his gang. At gunpoint, they force the Virginian and Amy to dismount their horse, and they take the bag. Swenson opens the bag, promising that he will take only what he is owed, not the whole amount. He's not even going to get that, because there's no cash, just strips of cut-up newspaper. Swenson is surprised. His boys are surprised. The Virginian is surprised. Nobody really asks Lightning, but Lightning's probably surprised too at this point. Swenson empties the bag and even empties Amy's bag, but there's not a single dollar to be found. And the Virginian swears up and down he knew nothing about it. But he strongly suspects that the man who swapped out real cash for a bunch of waste paper was one Mr. Moody. Just because he's a lawyer doesn't mean he can't also be a crook. The Swensons confer with one of the boys covering the Virginian and Amy so they don't get any ideas about leaving. And that youngest Swenson could swear he remembers Amy from somewhere. Oh yeah, it's coming back to him now. She's the daughter of a farmer back home. He saw her at a barn dance. Hey, isn't she going to marry some other farmer? Before that conversation can progress much further, the elder Swensons reach a decision. They're setting the Virginian and Amy free, and then they're going to go find Moody, and then things will get messy. Left alone, the Virginian accuses Amy of stealing the cash. She denies this, but the fact that her whole backstory has been exposed as a lie isn't exactly working in her favor. The Virginian realizes that there's someone else who could have swapped out the cash from his saddlebag, the Lewises. Amy doesn't believe that. The Virginian doesn't want to believe it, but they have to double back and find out. Act 4. At the Lewis's house, the Virginian's accusation has not won him any friends. Well, there goes that invite to come back sometime. Mr. Lewis goes for his rifle, but the Virginian gets there first, opens it up, and pockets the rounds that were loaded in each barrel. Now, let's look for the money. In the Lewis's basement, there's one trunk that draws the Virginian's eye, but Mr. Lewis is adamant that it be left alone. The Virginian insists, and then regrets it. The trunk contains a doll, baby clothes, a photo of the daughter the Lewises lost over 30 years ago. The trunk hasn't been opened since the day they buried her. The Virginian searches through it thoroughly, finding nothing. He may just owe the Lewises a bit of an apology. The next time they step outside, he definitely owes them an apology, because the notorious Carl Swenson and his gang followed the Virginian back here, thinking he stashed the cash somewhere here. A fight breaks out. The Virginian starts throwing punches. Mr. Lewis struggles with Swenson. Guns are kicked out of hands. One of the Swenson boys punches Amy. And then, finally, where have you been? Steve shows up, having been searching for the Virginian since they got separated, and he gets the drop on the Swensons. They get tied up and thrown into the back of Mr. Lewis's wagon, which the Virginian is borrowing just long enough to get them into town to drop off the whole notorious wagon full of Swensons with the local sheriff, and then leaving the wagon there for Mr. Lewis to retrieve at a later date. At this point, Amy is ready to go home, but the Virginian isn't ready to let her out of his sight, not until he finally finds out who stole the money, because with the Lewises cleared of suspicion, it's down to either Walter Moody or Amy. Sporting a black eye from the fight, Amy is not happy with this development, but she also isn't being given a choice. Back in Medicine Bow, Wyoming, who should the Virginian and Steve run into almost immediately but Mr. Moody, who fesses up that he swapped out the cash and used the boys as a decoy to keep the Swensons away from the real money, which Moody claims is stashed safely in the Medicine Bow Bank. Maybe he should have let them in on the plan, but Moody felt that they'd try that much harder to keep the money safe if they thought that's what they actually had. The Virginian agrees, and then lands a solid punch on Mr. Moody to thank him for his trouble. And Amy slaps the Virginian for accusing her of being a thief. He owes her an apology, and it is offered. And with that, she is done with this whole excitement and adventure thing. She's getting on the next eastbound train to return to her humdrum but safe life, but not before getting one more kiss out of the Virginian. Absolutely nobody sticks around to help Moody stand up and dust himself off. The end.
Earl, I believe you ran that recap all the way home.
I definitely tried. Had some help from Lightning. Had some help from the notorious Carl Swenson. Okay, so, this is worth mentioning. A little point of additional trivia. Carl Swenson, the character, is played by Carl Swenson, the actor.
Carl Swenson, the actor?
TV's Carl Swenson. He is approximating the Swedish accent that his parents probably spoke with because they were immigrants. He himself was a Brooklyn native.
Oh.
Now,
wow.
He does appear in 6 other episodes of The Virginian as someone different every time. This was the only time Carl was playing kinda, sorta himself. I really would love to have been a fly on the wall for that discussion. It's like, hey guys, could I just be me? But in the Old West, it's less work that way. And it's like, sure, Carl, whatever.
Why not? Why not, Carl? You do you, bud. To me, that felt like, is this like a John Carpenter thing? 'Cause, for those of you who aren't familiar with John Carpenter's work, he kind of notoriously names characters after real people, or will use names of other actors. So, for example, in the movie The Fog, Tom Atkins, the actor, plays a character named Nick Castle. Nick Castle is another actor who was The Shape, or Michael Myers, in the original Halloween. So, I'm like, is this a Carl Swenson now as Carl Swenson? So what is this? How did this come to be? I would love to know how we arrived at the idea. Well, this guy's been in, this is for the first season, so I don't know how many episodes he had been in prior to this.
He'd been one before this one.
Okay, well, they were out of name ideas, so they're like, this is Carl Swenson, and they never went back to rename him. They didn't have find and seek and replace, find and replace on typewriters back then. So,
hey, at least his name wasn't Fem.
Fem, yeah, that's right, Fem, or Guy Manley, or
yeah, Hugh Man.
Hugh Man, yeah. Whew. Okay.
Well,
Carl Swenson. Anyway.
The budget was not spent on names.
Clearly.
But, because we do love doing this every time a dollar amount comes up, time to hit the inflation calculator, and in $26, that $40,000 in the 1890s, that is well north of $1 million now. For a boxcar full of cattle, that is a lot of moolah.
I'm very upset that I did not think of that pun. So thank you, Earl.
Oh, did you notice that we are 9.5 minutes into this show before they put up the episode title on screen?
It was a very long cold open. Did you notice in that cold open there were some cows? Do you want to know what happened in my house when I saw the cows?
I have a feeling I know.
Moo.
And the funny thing is, there's not really a cold open to this show. It's just trucking 10 minutes into Act 1 before we tell everyone what this episode is. I was like,
yeah.
What is this, a modern streaming series? That is actually precisely the trend that this show represents, because here in the spring of '63, we are attempting to put something on the small screen that is going to try to beat the movie experience to some of its punches. In terms of the length of the show, the amount of money it's putting on the screen. So, if you look at it that way, there is an argument for the Virginian is in fact laying the blueprint of the modern streaming series in 1963, which is wild to even think about.
Yeah, that is really interesting because the other thing that made me think, like, to compare this to a modern streaming series is that this runtime, no commercials, is an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, every episode was 75 minutes, and the remaining 15 minutes was commercial time for a 90-minute, hour-and-a-half time slot.
Yeah, I could not name any other show off the top of my head that had a standing 1.5 hour time slot.
Yeah, and the wild thing, I do have to praise them for this. At no point does this feel like it's sagging in the middle.
Yeah, like I felt like we were firing on all cylinders. Full steam ahead, if you will, since a lot of this is on a train.
Lightning's not firing on all cylinders. Lightning's just loping along.
Poor Lightning. But yeah, I just like the longer runtime is like, I thought for a second before, taking note of the episode number, like, was this like a pilot and we're doing like a double episode? No, this is just the regular runtime.
Yeah, this is just that week's episode.
Huh.
Oh, which does have one of the funniest dialogue exchanges I have heard in the entire history of Gene-ology. I really would like to know if we should give Gene the credit for this, or if Mr. Brown gets the credit. But with the notorious Swenson gang closing in while they are in Firestone, the Virginian asks this ranch hand in a barn, "Where's the back door?" To which the ranch hand says, "Right there. What do you want with it?" "I want to go through it."
I literally laughed out loud.
Me too. I laughed so hard at that every time I watch this. And I started thinking, okay, I'm up way too late watching this, doing the prep for this show. But every time I found it just uproariously fun. It is so dumb that it's looped around and now it's clever.
You know what? It was funny at 11:30 this morning too, and I was drinking coffee, so the brain juice was flowing.
Okay, so we're in agreement there. It's just funny.
Yes, that was also in my notes as a really great piece of dialogue. So well done, Gene or other guy.
There were a couple of other standouts that I thought were funny. Like toward the end, sitting on the wagon, Amy looks at Steve Hill. She says, "Your friend's an idiot." For some reason, not even waiting for the response to that. I just thought that was hysterically funny. It's just her delivery.
Like, her delivery is on point. I think my favorite line, besides the one, like, "Where's the back door?" "What do you want with it?" "I want to go through it." Was when he wakes her up the next morning. He's like, "Hey, come on, you got to get up. There might be breakfast." And she sits straight up. "Breakfast?" Delivered in that tone.
Yeah.
"Breakfast?"
Oh, yeah. We get all of her octaves in that. Not in one line, but in one word.
I will now only be saying breakfast like that going forward.
Now, during breakfast? Did you notice, it took me a minute, and then I saw it, the Lewis's teapot, that prop at their house, that is the same teapot/coffee pot from the jail.
Was it?
Yes!
Oh my gosh, no, I didn't notice.
Hey, you know that you got 90 minutes, the game is to put every dime on that screen. Who cares? It's a teapot.
I thought it was kind of funny when he makes the flying leap. There was a lot of flying leaps that happened in this episode. Steve makes the flying leap onto the horse.
That's a good quick mount. I mean, that's totally
I'm
valid.
Like, bro, good job. And then the flying leap that the Virginian takes into the freight car, the way he like kind of tucks and rolls and then rolls over and lands in Amelia's lap, and I'm like, oh, this is convenient. I was just waiting for him to say, "I do declare."
Yeah.
Something that kind of made me laugh. There was a lot of really funny dialogue, and it wasn't meant to be funny. Where she's talking about this guy that she dated for a little while. He was a drinker, but his drinking started at Harvard. And I was like, I believe that.
Yeah, although really we are left to question by the end of the show. was any of that based on any kind of fact.
Oh, yeah. She's had her fill of adventurous living. She's like, I'm going to go back east and get married. I'm like, you going to marry a guy like that you just feel meh about?
She could go back east and not marry him.
How about that? But I mean, understand this is the 1890s.
True.
You know, yeah. That's probably not an option for her. But yeah, I can't fathom marrying anyone that I was not less than head over heels about. If I was just meh about a person, or no, we're not going to make any long-term commitments to that person. Sorry.
Lady, just elope with Lightning and no one's going to say a word.
No, Lightning seems like a good horse. Probably Sam's cousin.
Yeah. You know, when the Virginian kind of lands in her lap, jumping into the moving freight train, that first scene, I wasn't sure if there was really any chemistry between them at all.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the episode, I realized, no, there absolutely was not. But Janine Riley was on fire for this whole show. It's like she has chemistry with everyone, including herself. You can't take your eyes off her. How's this not her show? Because all the guys in this episode, with the possible exception of the notorious Carl Swenson, although I think 50% of that character is just the accent.
Right.
The guys are all bland.
Yeah.
The two women in the show have real personality. Mrs. Lewis has some Mr. Lewis has some personality too, but his personality is just irritation. Irritation
and or somewhat stoic, somewhat emotionless man.
Yeah. Every guy in this show feels like third Western archetype from the left.
Yeah, I mean, I think, because I've noticed this show ran for 6 seasons?
It ran for 9 seasons.
9 seasons, good grief. Yeah, so it ran for a really long time. And to be fair, this is the only episode I've seen of it. But I kind of feel like, Gary Clark and James Drury are literally riding on their good looks. Because they are both very handsome, and all the women think they look Mickey-outy tonight.
Okay, Ashley, I can say this about Runaway Home. At least it wasn't Juliet 2.0, and thank goodness it wasn't Waveland 2.0.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. As I was describing her saying, breakfast, I realized she set up in the same way that Waveland did in that one episode. And I'm like, oh, thank God she didn't say, he loves me. But at least then it wasn't after she got hit. It was him, nudging her with his foot and saying, hey, there's breakfast.
Yeah, so about her getting hit.
Yeah, there's that.
Okay, it's not played for laughs.
Mm-hmm.
She has got a shiner afterward. Now, it's obviously a makeup department shiner because there's no swelling.
Mm-hmm.
Which, okay, I get, you hire Janine Riley, you do not want to disfigure the actress in any way. You want her very pretty face visible at all times. It's not a comedy thing. She's in the wrong place at the wrong time in a bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it does help to hammer home that, okay, all the Swensons are jerks.
Yep.
It's okay, one of these boys just went and hauled off and hit a lady. Not cool. It's it's a tell on them, but it's not a comedy relief moment for her at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not crazy about it, but at least there is some weight to it.
Yeah.
She doesn't just walk it off. It's like, oh, all better now. Although it's gone by the time we catch up with our attorney guy at the train station for that little button scene at the end. Then it's gone. But who knows how long they were riding that wagon.
I think this is a really interesting episode because you and I are in agreement, Earl. I think Janine Riley just steals the show. This whole episode, she's way more interesting than any of the other guys. I will say I have a little bit of empathy for Carl. I mean, we saw this kind of thing happen during the Great Depression. Folks would make a run on the bank because they're panicked and they want to get their cash. And he's like, I just want my $12,000. I'm not taking anybody else's money, But then he also doesn't understand how banks don't, it's not like the vault is full of everybody's cash that is everywhere else. It goes somewhere. But at the same time, he's not educated enough to understand how the banking system actually works.
On the emotional side of his reaction, he is just spiraling. Like, they catch up with the train engineer, and he's like, oh, he paid you to say that. Like, dude, really?
Yeah, like, it's all based on, I'm mad, and I need to direct my mad at somebody. Here you go.
Oh, so in 2026, he'd be on Facebook.
Yeah, he absolutely would. He'd be firing off on social media, being grumpy in somebody's general direction, because that grumpy's gotta have somewhere to go. And because he's so dead set in, well, this is the fact of the situation. He's not taking in new information. He's not willing to look at the evidence logically. Yeah. He's just like, nope, that scoundrel ran off with my money. This is my money, and you can't tell me different. And you can't. Like, he's not willing to take in new information.
The thing that makes me extremely skeptical is, they go searching everywhere for the saddlebag that has money. So if they find it somewhere, say if they find it in the barn, in Lewis's barn, and it's got the cash in it, they really gonna leave everything except Carl's, what was it, 12 grand in there?
Yeah.
Really?
Really?
Because once you have someone who is unable or unwilling to take on any information or to empathize that there may be other people like him going through the same thing, then you're going to start getting into a mindset where it's like, oh, well, this is owed to me for my trouble.
Yeah.
I don't believe the remainder of that money would have just been left there. Especially, not with his boys being trigger happy.
Yeah.
And kind of, okay. This really took me back to the Juliet episode of Have Gun Will Travel. It's like, okay, we finally fixed that storyline. Because this is a lot like that, except we've replaced the Pikes with the Swensons. We've kind of jettisoned the Confederate Civil War baggage that the Pikes had in Juliet. And by the way, for those who don't remember, that was a slightly troublesome episode of Have Gun Will Travel we covered way back in podcast number 37. There are some other similarities. You still have a little bit of an age gap between Amy and the Virginian, but it is not as troubling as it was with Juliet, who was verbally stated in dialogue as being a teenager.
Yeah.
Amy is naive, but she reads as older. She's just out of her teens. She's in her early 20s. And also, James Drury does not read as being as old as Paladin. However, here's the scary thing. Actors in question were right around the same age.
Yeah, I was just looking at James Drury was born in 1934. Janine Riley was born in 1940. James Drury would have been 29. Janine Riley, 23. So yeah, you're reading her right. Like, she's early 20s. And he's a bit older, but not that much older.
Not creepy older.
Yeah, and not like, ew, gross older.
Yeah, because Juliet gave us a huge case of the icks.
Yeah.
Because Richard Boone read as way older than this girl who is, in dialogue, what was she, 16, 17 years old?
Something like that. Not quite 18. I am 16, going on 17.
Yeah, that is it. Because that song came up. Oh,
yep.
Flashbacks, helicopters. But this feels like Gene was taking another swipe at the basic story outline of Juliet, but everything about it is improved. Now, how much of that is Gene, how much of that is Mr. Brown, I can't say because we don't have a paper trail on this stuff. We don't have script drafts.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like, oh, good. We finally got Juliet right. We could stop here.
Yeah.
We could stop telling the story here. Although, ironically, I have seen the Alias Smith and Jones episode from 1971.
Yeah.
It is almost line for line the exact same layout. There are no surprises in that remake.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how that came about.
I've seen a bit of it too, and so when I fired this up today to watch, I'm like, wait a minute, I thought there was like two, okay, never mind. All right, something different. But yeah, that's wild. I didn't know that was like basically the same story. Good grief.
I mean, exactly the same story. And so either there was a script shortage, or someone on that show remembered it from this show and said, oh, we could just remake that. That was a great little story.
Yeah,
and they're right, it was.
Yeah, it was. And that was interesting. Let's do that again.
That's, oh boy, can you imagine someone doing that now?
Oh, they would get creamed.
Yeah, social media would tear them apart for that.
Oh, yeah. Like, that would not end well for anyone.
Yeah, case in point, even before social media, go back to Usenet in 1987, late 87, right after the Star Trek The Next Generation episode The Naked Now dropped. Mm-hmm. It wasn't pretty.
The hills are alive with the sound of anger.
We like Janine Riley. Here's the thing. The character of Amy, the way she is written, she is extremely likable.
Definitely.
Now, there are some questions. I don't think she's the descendant of an English lord. She comes across like more of a descendant of Baron Munchausen.
I'll take it.
With all of these tall tales that she keeps telling, that scene. It's not breakfast. It's dinner. It's their late dinner the night before at the Lewis's, and the Virginian is just watching her, say all this stuff. Oh yeah, we're related to English lords. The look on his face is like, just stop now, while they still kind of sort of believe you, maybe. That is not an unheard of behavior for a young person who is trying desperately to fit in and make themselves seem more interesting or important. More of a problem when you age out of that and keep up with the lying. Mm-hmm. Although, if you're coming of age in this unfortunate time we're in, where we seem to be in a post-truth world where verifiable reality just gets discarded when it's inconvenient, probably barely registers at all. Old farts like me, it's like, yeah, honey, you need to stop that now. Get out of that habit now.
Yeah. What do you think of the lawyer's ruse to get the money where it needs to be?
He's lucky everyone didn't simultaneously punch him in the face.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I think that is a thing that actually happens when Alias Smith and Jones remakes this in 71.
Oh, good. Everybody does?
Yeah, everybody punches him simultaneously, which is, it's such a fake TV fade-out thing, but it's like, dude, you almost got us killed. I don't mean killed a little, I mean killed a lot.
He about got them killed dead, as I've heard folks say around here. Him just kind of gleefully telling him what he did when they get back to town. It was almost like the 1960s version of, but did you die?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not for lack of trying, buddy. It's lucky all he got was one punch in the face.
Yeah, the only reason we got out of that is we slipped Lightning some coffee, man. But yeah, I would be punching Moody, and then I would be going to Judge Garth and saying, "Boss, what the hell?
Yeah,
I could use a raise, on the basis of this."
Yeah. I was like, gonna need some hazard pay for this. That $40K you got, you better slide some of that into my bank account.
Yeah. It would be most welcome. If there's one thing in the episode that took me out of it, it was this obvious comedy relief character, like the city slicker guy in a wagon, just rolls down the trail while Steve is looking for the Virginian. And they just have this conversation that is, I swear it is trying to turn into Who's on First. How should I know what your friend looks like? It's just like, okay, it's funny, but it's so constructed. It does not feel natural and integral to the story. Why is this here? Other than, oh, you know what? We need some more giggles and guffaws.
Yeah. It was clearly for comedy relief. The guy's delivery almost reminded me of Don Knotts' character in Andy Griffith.
I was thinking of like every other Tim Conway character in the Carol Burnett show.
That would work too. Like, he's just like, well, you ought to go, blah, 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 blah. And like the guy's trying to, poor little Steve trying to get a word in edgewise. Nope. Well, how am I supposed to? Like, bro, you're missing the point.
Yeah, he was aggressively missing the point, and I think that's why it felt so constructed. It's like, okay, this is it. It is funny, but it's a comedy routine that's just been dropped into the middle of the episode.
Yeah, it's that plus like the aside about the Lewises losing their daughter. Like, yeah, that's meant to create some sympathy for them, I guess, but like, was it necessary for the episode?
It does kind of seem to fly in out of nowhere, and it's like, whoa, we got dark.
Yeah, like, okay, we're gonna need, fast-talking dude to step in and make us laugh real quick right after this one.
And at the same time, though, they've built up so much suspicion in the audience's mind for the Lewises. You've got to let the air out of that balloon somehow in a way that totally vindicates them and lets them off the hook.
That's fair. When I think of it that way, okay, that is definitely a way to do that. Like, yeah, no, it's definitely not in there because we haven't opened that trunk in 30 years. And there's a really good reason for that we don't really want to talk about.
It all makes sense, but again, it feels like a construction in a script.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to love with this episode. I really did like this one.
I did too.
It's just that occasionally you do get some stuff that feels a little artificial.
Yeah. Feels like it's meant to pad out that hour 15.
Yeah, which is sad because so much of the rest of it just flows, and it's just good. And it's the weird bits that take us out of it because the rest of it was so good.
Right.
All right, Ashley, our one ride with the Virginian. What are your thoughts here? What do you think of the show overall and specific episode? We really don't stick with anything long enough to see what it was like when Gene wasn't writing it.
Yeah. So, the Virginian, I think, was something that my dad would have on fairly often when I was growing up. Now, knowing that there are multiple iterations of the Virginian, I'm going to assume it's this one, because he would have been in his mid-late teens when this was on the air, when it premiered in 1963 or 62.
Yeah, and it was in reruns forever because there were more than 100 episodes. You hit that magic number, you're in syndication forever. Yeah. And then, as I mentioned in trivia, once other work started drying up for James Drury, it's like his full-time job became, hey, remember me? I was the Virginian. You should still be watching the Virginian.
Yeah.
Smart guy. I mean, he likes his residuals.
Hey, I can't say I blame him. Blame him. That being said, I'm pretty sure this was something that was kind of existed in the background of my growing up years, because this is something my dad would watch. But I had never watched a full episode before today, so getting to get a flavor for this, I see why it was on for so many years. I never felt bored. I was definitely entertained from start to finish. I mean, if this is a good sample of what the rest of the series was like, yeah, I can see why it ran for so long. Even though, the Westerns were becoming a bit passé at this point.
Yeah, there are shows with shorter run times that I could name. And let me also be clear about this. These are shows I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Like Space 1999, you could probably cut about 15 minutes out of every episode and you would be doing it a favor because it just drags. But at the same time, if you like the production design, it's like, okay, can we now take a break from the story to admire the sets?
Yeah.
This does not feel like it drags bottom at any point.
No, it doesn't. And sometimes with these Westerns, I can definitely feel a little bored just because it's not totally my jam. But this I never did. I mean, maybe that was Janine Riley being super charming and interesting. But again, I felt like all the action was really well paced. I thought the stunts were cool. And it was an interesting story. So, no complaints from me. I think this was great.
Yeah, and even the funny bits that we were criticizing earlier, it's not that they were not funny. It's not that they failed to be funny.
Yeah.
It was just kind of the out-of-left-fieldness of it, like...
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was a bit odd.
It was a bit odd, but at the same time, I've talked to people like that before, and like the frustration, like I felt even just watching that scene, I was like, oh my gosh, this person thinks they are very smart and thinks they can prove they're very smart by talking so much. Yeah, no, it's not how it works. So
yeah, that guy in the wagon just invented the customer service helpline.
Truly, press 1 for an agent, press 2. To be redirected. Press 3 if you know your party's extension. Press 4 if you need to repeat these options. I mean, that's basically what he got. You're right.
Yeah, press 7 to scream into the void.
Yeah. 7. Yeah, this was great. I really liked it. So I would be curious. I'll have to ask my dad this week if he watched any of this, because I'm reasonably confident. At minimum, I remember hearing commercials for it growing up. So wouldn't be surprised if this was on, right along with Have Gun and, any other John Wayne, Clint Eastwood movie that my dad would watch ad nauseum.
And now, I do think once it had been in syndication for a while, there was a practice of mashing the show down in terms of cutting out story content to make it fit in an hour.
Yeah.
For the reruns. What a crime, because, I mean, not even the funny bits that were kind of like, slightly out of place. I wouldn't cut those because you need the levity in this one.
You really do. Because this is a stressful episode. You got guys in pursuit. You've got a nice older couple, but... they have a really sad past, and you need...
Yeah, they're hiding something.
Yeah, they're hiding their grief that they don't want to discuss with strangers. I don't understand.
I can't think of anything that could stand to be cut out.
Yeah.
And so I shudder to think what they would have discarded from this one, because it is, for the most part, very well constructed. And... I think there may have been a little bit of messaging in here. This is a very plot-heavy episode, but I do applaud the healthy skepticism that this story has for the people who have their hands on the money supply, and therefore on the levers of power. Now, we do find out Mr. Moody was just doing what he was told, protecting his client, whatever. But he also sent a couple of guys off, and therefore, by extension, Judge Garth, who we don't even see, he's the boss of the ranch. He employs the Virginian and Steve, and the other sidekicks we don't even see in this one. He was okay with this plan? It's like, this is your foreman. Your ranch foreman. This is your best dude. This guy he doesn't keep the trains running on time, he keeps cows running on time.
Ooh.
Keeps them moving, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to send him into harm's way, and that's just cool?
Cool? Maybe he thought he would be good at moving his moolah to a safe spot, just like he is good at moving his cows. So, and I guess obviously this guy has a bit of a reputation for being handy with a gun, or, being a tough guy or whatever. He wouldn't be the lead of the Western if he wasn't. So, it's, I would definitely be like, dude, is this we're a few years out from Alien, but this is like, preserve the organism, crew expendable, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like we're going to meet Judge Garth next week, and he's played by Paul Reiser from Mad About You.
Right.
But yeah, the skepticism about the people who were calling the shots, very justifiable in this case. Mm-hmm. This episode does not answer those questions. It feels like there's got to be some discussion, some serious discussion after this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And, if that was the underlying message, preach.
Yeah, seriously.
It's not a thing that's resolved. It's not a thing that's foregrounded, but I think it is there.
Yeah. It definitely caught my attention, especially when he says he's a lawyer. Thought I could trust a lawyer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm not throwing shade at anybody listening who practices the law. But, anyone with a measure of power like that needs to be checked in some way.
Yeah.
Making sure they're wielding their powers for good.
Yeah, and we're really left with that sort of dangling question at the end of this one. It's like, so much could have gone wrong.
Yeah.
At what point do you let them off the hook? Oh, no. That was fine. It was kind of funny. I got kissed by a pretty girl.
Yeah, pretty girl just, totally, smacked him across the face, too. That was great. How dare you accuse me of lying?
Yeah, everybody got punched in this one.
Yeah. Even Janine, she got punched, too.
Yeah. No one punched Lightning, which Lightning looks like he's seen some stuff anyway.
Yeah. Poor Lightning. Whew.
Yeah. This was really enjoyable. Very plot-oriented, but I still think there is something in there to think about. And you know what? I am not mad about an hour plus of Janine Riley pre-Petticoat Junction. She is awesome in this. She blows everyone else off the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, it's like, man, she needs her own show, and apparently by the fall of that year, somebody agreed.
Good. Yeah. No, that I agree. This was a lot of fun. Nice, pleasant surprise. So.
Special thanks to the Roddenberry Repertory Players. Our cast this week featured Duncan Fraser as the Virginian, Kevin Ibbotson as the notorious Carl Swenson, Alan Simonis as Oscar Swenson, Matthew Corey as Jody Swenson, and Heather Engholm as Amelia. Gene-ology is meant to be entertaining and informative, but it's also just the beginning of an ongoing conversation about the works of Gene Roddenberry. Drop us a line at missionlog@roddenberry.com and join us on Facebook at missionlogpod. And please remember, your comments could be used on future installments of Gene-ology. If you have any material that might be of interest to us that isn't already in the Roddenberry archive, drop us a line at missionlog@roddenberry.com. Our website is missionlogpodcast.com, and Mission Log Gene-ology is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment.
On the next Gene-ology, Queen Anne Killer Unidentified, the Michael Old story. Special thanks to consulting producers Matt Esposito, Tom Kozak, Mike Richards, Mike Schabel, and Paul Shadwell.
We'll be back next week with more of your favorite programs. This concludes our broadcast day.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.